Good day, YouTubers and true brothers and sisters in Christ, because I try and live by the benchmark that he left, where he said, "You will know them by their fruits." And sadly, I don't see much of that from many professing Christians. I see finger pointing. I see the religious hypocrisy and piousness, usually because they belong to a particular man-made organisation. In fact, I'm thinking of renaming the word. Instead of denomination, let's call it demonation, or whatever. Sorry about the tongue twister there, but yeah, that's what I'm seeing. That our Lord Yeshua taught simple truths, and in fact, a brother who no longer appears on YouTube, and I hope he's faring well, by the name of Chad Avery, really did sum it all up, and that people do not seem to understand that when Jesus gasped his last words on the cross and said, "It is finished," that's what he meant. He'd finished the work that he had done, that he had come to earth to do, to show the world the love of God, to show the power of God, and to show the forgiveness of God. But no, people want to show the power of God in their self-righteous way, where they, professing to serve God, put God behind them and go forward, stating that they're doing God's will, rather than humbling themselves, admitting that they are spiritually and in some cases morally bankrupt, and that they need our Lord's forgiveness, and that they should be forever thankful and should be ever praising him. But no, the majority think that going to church once a week and having a Bible study once a week is sufficient, and they're good Christians. But isn't it interesting that Yeshua himself, when he walked the earth, when a man came up to him and said, "I perceive you to be a good person," he said, "Who's good? Don't call me good. No one is good except for your heavenly Father." Yeah, that's why we have the statement in the scriptures. All, that's me, that's you that's watching this, that's everyone, has fallen short of the glory of God. And of course, some have fallen more than others. And the sad thing is, as you know, most people cannot perceive that this world is actually run by a fallen angel called Satan, or Lucifer, or any other disguises he presents himself in. It just I'm sorry, but I find myself totally and absolutely bewildered that the majority of mankind is so blithely ignorant and so willfully at that, to the simple truth that, as Yeshua himself said when he walked the earth, the whole world is in the power of the wicked one. You know? And yet we still have people carrying on the teachings and doctrines of men which he warned against and said not to follow. Yeah? This insistence that you must be in a church, because if you're not in a church then you're not saved. Whereas he gave that simple assurance: wherever 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, I am in the midst. And whilst on the subject of I am, which was what he wished to be known as when he appeared before Moses, and as I have learnt, is actually Ahia in Hebrew, Oh, surprise, surprise. I had a brother in Christ admonishing me for using that word, as he said, because that's used by the black Israelites, and that they're deluded. Well, irrespective of whether certain Afro-Caribbean people believe they're Israelites, the fact that they actually use that name and not Jehovah, which we actually find in the scriptures where he himself says, I was not known by that name. Isn't that a clear indication that he was saying that, you have chosen to call me this name? It's a name that I don't recognise, that it's not my name? Did not understand that part of scripture? Do not understand that the word Jehovah is just 4 Hebrew letters, Yod Hey Vav Hey, in which someone decided to put vowels in between to make the name Jehovah, and some said, oh no, actually we'll call it Yahweh. Yeah. No, let's just use 2 vowels instead of 3. Yeah. Let's just use AE instead of EOA. And then I said, oh, let's try and make ourselves different from others. What we'll do is we'll say Yahuwah. Yeah, which I'm sorry to say, sounds like someone throwing up. And doesn't in any way, shape or form glorify our Creator. Just like those who believe that Jesus is not God and is not God made flesh, who deny actually what Isaiah prophesied when he said, he will walk among us, but we will perceive him not. Yeah, King David, even writing about his crucifixion in the Psalms. I shake my head in exasperation and anguish, really, anguish. I feel like Amos and son, I do believe I am that voice in the wilderness, especially when I've discovered that my last postings have had, interestingly, Man's Vain Philosophies has had no views. Oh, could that title be too abrasive for some people? That, they'd rather cling to man's vain philosophies and support man's vain philosophies than the simple truth that is in Christ? Because that obviously is the indication there, even from professing Christians. Yeah? But the Bible clearly states that God laughs at the so-called wisdom of man. He considers it foolishness, and rightly so. Because look at the state of the world that we're in. All based on man's wisdom. Anyway, the title of this video is going to be Wake Up, UK Christians and citizens. Because I'm going to be sharing some things with you which is not common knowledge. And I hope that you will spread the word. Because we are closer now to receiving the mark of the beast than we ever were. So, here's the first one for contemplation. Good title. I must admit I've changed it slightly from the original title by the author, which is Brian Gerrish, by the way, of UK Column, who I interestingly find some people are accusing of being a fifth column and a disinfo agent, etc, etc. And yet what I find is, whenever I check his things out, that he just shows you what's really going on behind the news headlines. To not accept what the mainstream media tells us, but to dig deeper. So, this is called Chocolate, and I've called it the Creeping British Death Cult. Or should I say Chocolate and the Creeping British Death Cult. So I'll begin. Death has become a prevalent subject in the UK. That might perhaps seem appropriate, as with life comes death, and that is the stark situation for all of us. When I say I, in this, obviously I'm speaking from the author's point of view, but yeah, I also too, accept that fact. As the Bible tells us to do, it says it is appointed for all of us to die once and then the judgment. Perhaps I'm not alone in thinking that over the last few years, this is the author writing, death seems to have become a little too prevalent in nanny state policy. After all, mankind has coped with death from the beginning of human life and did not need government help and massive media campaigns to do so. Moreover, we are now swamped with publicity and government edicts promoting the fear of death. We will die from too much alcohol, too many cigarettes, failure to do up our seat belts, cancer, obesity, insufficient exercise, the wrong diet, AIDS, SARS, HIV, Alzheimer's, terrorist attacks, dementia, flu, global warming, the winter cold, pollution, cycling without a helmet, Ebola, and more. We should be afraid, very afraid of dying, except perhaps when we die within a government-backed euthanasia scheme. Surprisingly or perhaps not, millions of people have not died from bird flu or SARS, and the media hype of such a disaster has been allowed to fade into the long grass and into short public memories. In contrast to that death hype, the government and media did not report and have never reported on the millions who have died from vaccinations, which are claimed to protect us from death. But we will leave that for another day. Recognising that death is real, we must acknowledge that many good people have worked to support people at the end of their life, nursing, comforting and dealing with both physical and emotional pain. These are very special people who often cope with very difficult and emotionally draining circumstances. They deserve our widespread recognition, support and appreciation, and I wholly condone that. Today though, family, community, public and private end-of-life palliative care is just not enough, and according to the government, the ordinary man or woman just isn't equipped to deal with this issue anymore, and we all need help. And so the British government steps in. Happily, in the background, the British government, its NGOs and third sector agents have spent a vast amount of time and energy to give us that very help to cope with death, and all their good works are now emerging from the shadows. Take for example the recent headline concerning St Helier Hospital, where dying became a big issue rather quickly. The charity Dying Matters had been assisting the hospital to train doctors and nurses in death, presumably coping with dying, and death is no longer part of medical training, but no matter. In the course of their charitable work, a memo was issued which caused a stir. In Dying Awareness Week, they stated, the palliative care team had stands in both Epsom and St Helier Hospital to promote the National Dying Matters Awareness Week from the 9th to the 13th of May. Dying Matters celebrates life and reminds us that we only die once. It encourages us to tell our families now what our wishes would be and to write them down while we are fit and well. Examples include registering an organ donor, making a will, and some people like to record their funeral wishes also. Living well and dying well can be fun, as well as serious. As you can imagine, palliative care's theme, Death by Chocolate, was very well received. And he obviously encourages us to look at dyingmatters.org for more information and advice. The author then says, it was the living well and dying well can be fun part, which really stuck in the throats of some staff, and they told the national press so. To my mind, the whole memo was either appallingly written or deliberately cunning in meaning. The first linguistic twists are subtle at first but become obvious. Matters of dying help celebrate life. Dying Matters encourages us to donate organs. We should make a will and record funeral wishes. Dying well can be fun. Before you say, but making a will is sensible, please stay with me as we dig a little deeper and reflect on dying is fun, as is death by chocolate. The Deadly Dying Matters memo appeared following an awareness week, but who is Dying Matters? They are a charity overseeing a coalition of 32,000 members across England and Wales, which aims to help people talk more openly about dying, death and bereavement, and to make plans for the end of life. Their members include organisations from across the NHS, voluntary and independent healthcare sectors, including hospices, care homes, charities supporting old people, children and bereavement, social care and housing, faith and community organisations, schools and colleges, academic bodies, trade unions, legal professions, and the funeral sector. Phew, everybody's now talking about death, including schools, colleges, children and charities supporting children, but not to worry as death is to be made fun. Well, actually something better than that. The mission of Dying Matters Coalition is to facilitate a fundamental change in society in which dying, death and bereavement will be seen and accepted as a natural part of everybody's life cycle. So my question is this. Who decided that we all needed to be taught about death to make it natural? Inverted commas. Why do we suddenly need to discuss dying widely and freely to enjoy life? Those who have seen death, and far too much of it, in wars, know only too well that whilst death is real, and the dead deserve our love, memories and respect, the darkness of death is best left as a quiet, respectful sideline to the beauty of life and living. And to that I will add that Yeshua himself said, "Today I give you a choice, either to live life and life more abundantly, or the way to death." And that it is, that when you follow this world, when you believe the lies and deceptions of this world, then you follow death. Going back to Brian's expose, because that's what it is. After all, the major world religions all celebrate life and the giving of life. Satanists, on the other hand, do indeed celebrate death. Enter the Dark Lord, Falconer. Is it a coincidence that Dying Matters nudges the reader by also stating that the lack of openness on death and dying has affected our ability to die where or how we would wish? This claim seems to fit remarkably well with the new government-driven agenda for so-called assisted dying, introduced in the Dark Lord Falconer's Assisted Dying Bill. Quoting, "A bill to enable competent adults who are terminally ill to be provided at their request with specified assistance to end their own life and for connected purposes." Nice. But just what are connected purposes? I have yet to hear Tony Blair's old friend Lord Falconer stand up for the lives of unborn children. Could it be that he is bigger on death than life? Or was he motivated to do good works for death as part of the 2008 government end-of-life care strategy for England? Consider that The Guardian reported in September of last year. In the Netherlands, assisted suicide is legal, and not just for those with terminal illnesses. At one clinic in The Hague, anyone with so-called unbearable suffering can be given the relief they seek. Significantly, The Guardian added that a 70-year-old man, surrounded by his family, is pictured being administered euthanasia medication. What is his so-called unbearable suffering? Borderline dementia? Not itself terminal, but we are told in this case the man had decided he did not want to go there. Is this a precedence, we wonder, for assisted dying to become assisted suicide in Britain? As the number of assisted deaths climbs to over 5,000 people in the Netherlands, the deceased also now include a 20-year-old sexual abuse survivor who could no longer deal with her most post-traumatic distress. It would seem that the assisted dying net in Holland is being cast very wide indeed. And here we have it. David Cameron calls for more dementia. Over recent months, British Prime Minister David Cameron has jumped on the dementia bandwagon with his so-called Prime Minister's Challenge on Dementia 2020 implementation plan. Aside from warning that we're all at increasing risk of dementia, the government now enthusiastically informs us that it expects some 2 million people to be diagnosed with dementia by 2050. As doctors are encouraged to up their dementia diagnosis targets to meet the designated 2 million figure, yes, really, the nation is to prepare the ground with dementia-friendly cities, towns and villages. Are all these 2 million people to be encouraged by the state to accept assisted dying? If so, we seem to be heading into a national political doctrine of eschatology, a doctrine of death. And a little side note on that. Doesn't this smack of what went on in Nazi Germany? Because they were the ones to start the euthanasia program because of Hitler's influence from Madame Blavatsky's eugenics ideas, of so-called thinning out the strain, thinning out the herd, getting rid of the useless eaters as they call us now, yeah. In Scotland, a similar palliative agenda was published in 2008 under the title Living and Dying Well. This was followed in 2011 by Living and Dying Well, Building on Progress. Using a number of short life working groups, these so-called short life working groups analysed and made recommendations on palliative and end-of-life care. The overall vision set out was a Scottish society in which people are able to talk about death and deal with related issues in a constructive way. Children grow up treating dying as an inevitable part of ordinary life. people are comfortable using words such as death, dead, and dying, and are able to make choices relating to their own dying and death. Health and social care professionals and volunteers in all care sectors feel able to have discussions relating to death, dying and bereavement with patients and families and with colleagues. Communities of all kinds are empowered to provide effective support to those dealing with death, dying, bereavement and loss. So, as with the end-of-life agenda south of the border, the Scottish programme clearly targeted the wider public and local communities with the objective of making discussion of death commonplace. Moreover, children are to grow up steeped in the inevitability of death. Is it just me, and I agree with them here, or is there something unpalatable here? Shouldn't our children be brought up to live life to the full, understanding love and compassion for their family, friends and fellow human beings? Why should young children be encouraged to talk about death and its inevitability? Whilst the charity Dying Matters has helped set up a collaborative palliative and end-of-life care network in England, Good Life, Good Death, Good Grief has been spawned in Scotland, with some 800 members across the same spectrum of NHS, profit-making and charitable establishments and organisations. Nestled amongst them is the Humanist Society. Let us not forget Liverpool Care Pathway and the Staffordshire deaths. These palliative and end-of-life political agendas would have us believe that our government is determined to ensure we all have access to high-quality palliative and end-of-life care. If this agenda was built upon an existing high-quality healthcare standard across the country, especially for elderly people, we might be reassured. Yet the opposite is true over recent years. The NHS in particular has rushed to install the Liverpool Care Pathway, accused by professionals and public alike of being a pathway to hasten death and cut NHS costs. In addition, the NHS has demonstrated frightening failures in care of the elderly, as evidenced by the tens of thousands of deaths, yes, tens of thousands, in the Staffordshire hospital debacle. At least 10 other hospitals as well, according to information now reaching their office. But the NHS is not alone in its track record of neglect and death. Care homes and nursing homes are also implicated in death pathways, usually facilitated by dehydration to assist mental confusion and thus allow the prescription of a cocktail of drugs for dementia and starvation to speed the end. Alongside the thousands of NHS deaths also come some alarming changes in the public system which monitors death and ensures foul play is not involved. Coroners were previously scrupulously independent and were served by independent staff. Not now. Many NHS trusts have the coroner sitting in offices adjacent to their executive management teams. What's more, their staff are increasingly composed of ex-police, who seem to be rather too cosy with the NH networks, and indeed local authorities. Evidence circulating in Plymouth relating to the untimely death of a middle-aged lady at the hands of both the NHS and care community included no less than 3 death certificates for the same person. Surprisingly, the coroner seemed unaware and unconcerned, and local police were aggressive to questions that social services seemed to be attempting to take her husband into care, and well, to simply take their house to presumably pay for his care. Wealth creation. Sorry, that's the title of the next piece. Wealth creation and ash for cash. Couple this situation with the rise of wealth creation and profit in the care system. In ash for cash, doctors are now receiving payments of approximately £85 for signing death certificates with a priority for cremation. The very cremation which always ties up so many ends so neatly. Evidence of foul play in particular. Bring in the private cremation companies that now offer bed-to-ash services collection, certificates, formalities and cremation, with or without any involvement of next of kin or friends, and the end-of-life disposal has become very neat, tidy and profitable. Yeah, it almost sounds like the Nazi death machine, doesn't it? Against this background of failure and suspect death pathways, and with governments that fail us so badly during life, can we trust the government to organise our end-of-life care at any stage? I think not. The evidence I see leads me to suspect that whilst eating our chocolate, we should consider that Britain's government-driven death cult does not have our best interests and long lives at heart. Increasingly, it appears they want a far tidier and more cost-effective solution to those individuals who are no longer able to generate corporate profit. In other words, the useless eaters. So, I hope you've taken it all in, and please rewind the video and listen again if need be, if there was anything there that you didn't pick up on. Because I'm telling you, as my title states, you need to wake up, Britain, and especially you UK Christians, you need to wake up, because Is this not the system that's being set up for the beast in order to persecute us and to have us done away with? And looking at this system here, you know, it's going to be all so nice and, you know, smooth with a minimum of fuss. You know? But of course, based on what the scriptures say, I'm expecting it. Because does it not say, all will wander after the beast, making excuses like, who can withstand him, and you know, who can question his power? Yeah. Willfully ignorant, preferring to follow a lie than the simple truth. So, whilst on this system of things, I want to share with you something else that's telling me that the beast system is nearer than people realise and how they're going to be implementing it. Get ready for this. The Global Parliament of Mayors, and as I put in the title, Goodbye Democracy. Give credit to Martin Edwards for this article, both available on the UK Column website. The overall objective of the internationalists is the undermining of the independent, self-governing Westphalian nation state and its system of governance, replaced by a new order more favourable to them. A detailed analysis of a variety of the mechanisms being employed to achieve those aims was provided in our ebook Agenda 21, Your Life in Their Hands, and I highly recommend you take a look at that. I gave a few copies out, but I must admit I did lose heart, but maybe I should try again. Total control of the levers of power in our cities and regions have been one of the key targets of the internationalists and their collaborators. We provided evidence of this indisputable fact in our in-depth Common Purpose Effect series of articles, within which we identified and revealed covert networks undermine democracy within our core cities and other local governance structures. In 1974, Richard N. Gardner, writing in Foreign Affairs, a journal published by the Council on Foreign Relations, wrote, "The House of World Order, in brackets, will have to be built from the bottom up rather than from the top down. It will look like a great booming, buzzing confusion, to use William James's famous description of reality, but an end run around national sovereignty, eroding it piece by piece, will accomplish much more than the old-fashioned frontal assault." Gardner served as special advisor to the United Nations at the 1992 Earth Summit in Rio, as he did in 1972 at the UN Conference on the Human Environment. Gardner is a member of the Council on Foreign Relations, or CFR as we know it. In recent years, there has been a great booming, buzzing confusion around the question of elected mayors in our cities and regions. In this and the subsequent article, we will examine two current projects which appear designed to assist the globalists achieve their objective: the Parliament of Mayors project and the 100 Resilient Cities programme. Directly elected mayors were first introduced by the Local Government Act of 2000. In 2012, David Cameron threw his whole weight behind the referendum campaign in favour of elected mayors, saying he wanted a Boris in every city. 9 cities including Manchester, Nottingham, Birmingham, Leeds and Coventry voted no. The only city to vote yes in its referendum was Bristol. In 2004, the Bristol Common Purpose Group discussed advertising in the Evening Post for an elected mayor and to see who applied. Early in 2005, the Evening Post ran the article and also posited a number of potential candidates that included John Savage, George Ferguson and Dick Penny. A Bristol 24/7 article revealed that Jaya Chakrabarti from Bristol-based digital marketing agency, Nameless, said an elected mayor would help people engage with local politics. According to her LinkedIn profile, Chakrabarti was a conspirator for the Bristol elected mayor campaign between 2010 and 2011, where she helped to change our part of the world a little with a fantastic band of co-conspirators. Chakrabarti is a Common Purpose Matrix graduate. Please look up Common Purpose, ladies and gentlemen, yeah? And that Matrix course, as they call it. It's funny how they would use the word Matrix, don't you think? Yeah? In the end, George Ferguson became the first independent mayor to lead a major city in Britain. He was officially sworn in at a ceremony held at Brunel's passenger shed, Temple Meads, on 19th of November 2012. We will meet up with him again later in this article. When announcing a devolution revolution in October 2015, George Osborne observed that it's time to face the facts. The way this country is run is broken. People feel remote from decisions that affect them. Our cities are held back and there's no incentive to promote local enterprise. It's time we fixed it. So this is what our plan means. Attract a business and you attract money. Regenerate the high street and you'll reap the benefits. Grow your area and you'll grow your revenue too. Money raised locally, spent locally. Every council able to cut business taxes. This new way in governing our country requires handing power to the people. Let the devolution revolution begin. So what exactly is the plan? And who are the people to be empowered? Despite the public having little appetite for the concept of directly elected mayors, it appears, following the spring budget, that we will be getting them whether we want them or not. According to George Osborne, in his March 2016 budget speech, for the first time we have reached agreement to establish new elected mayors in our English counties and southern cities too. We've agreed a single powerful East Anglia combined authority, headed up by an elected mayor and almost £1 billion of new investment. We've also agreed a new West of England mayor authority, and they too will see almost £1 billion invested locally. And the authorities of Greater Lincolnshire will have new powers, new funding, and a new mayor. In the government's Unlocking Growth in Cities document, published in December 2011, it states, "Leadership and accountability. Where cities want to take on significant new powers and funding streams, they will need to demonstrate strong, accountable leadership, an ambitious agenda for the economic future of their area, effecting decision-making structures and private sector involvement and leadership. Cities with a directly elected mayor will meet this requirement." The four local authorities of Bristol, Bath and North East Somerset and South Gloucestershire and North Somerset are required to work together to benefit from the Bristol City region deal. No doubt those who rejected an elected mayor in the Bath and North East Somerset referendum will be asked to vote again. A regional partnership of those from the public and private sector in the West of England Local Enterprise Partnership. Board members include Mayor George Ferguson, Guy Stobart, former managing partner of Burgess Salmon, a non-executive director of local to LWP, or the Learning Partnership West, and the long-standing trustee of the leadership charity Common Purpose, and James Dury, executive director of Bristol Chamber of Commerce and West of England Initiative at Business West. Business West, the initiative, is a strategic business partnership of the Bristol European Green Capital of 2015 year. Dury is a Common Purpose Matrix graduate of 2004. Oh, surprise, surprise. In addition, there would be a Metro Mayor in the Manchester metropolitan region. It is proposed that the new city-state model devolves the £6 billion NHS and social care budget in Greater Manchester to the region's councils and health bodies, promises to develop extra powers and additional fundings to cities and regions who accept elected mayors' might just change people's minds. For example, if the Sheffield City region, comprising of the 9 local authority areas of Barnsley, Bassetlaw, Bolsover, Chesterfield, Derbyshire, Dales, Doncaster, North East Derbyshire, Rotherham and Sheffield, has an elected mayor, it will benefit from a pot of government money, £30 million a year, over 30 years. But then listen to what this man has to say. He is the Mayor of The Hague and a member of the Global Parliament of Mayors. The Global Parliament of Mayors will deploy collective urban political power, manifesting the right of cities to govern themselves, as well as a responsibility to enact viable cross-border solutions to global challenges. In this era of interdependence, where nation-states are increasingly dysfunctional and cities are everywhere rising, the moment has come for cities to take the leap from effective local governments to true global governments. There's the key, global governments. Yeah? So what you're saying is, you can say goodbye to democracy, because all these mayors will be serving a common purpose. And I deliberately used that term for that specific reason. So what is this Parliament of Mayors movement, yeah? Well, a planet ruled by cities represents a new paradigm of global governance, of democratic localism rather than a top-down imposition, of horizontalism rather than hierarchy, of pragmatic interdependence rather than outworn ideologies of national independence. The foundations for this new world are being erected in our own age as cities collaborate and citizens communicate across borders with increasing ease and frequency. What remains is to sense the liberating possibilities of these developments, such as the view postulated in If Mayors Ruled the World, Dysfunctional Nations, Rising Cities by Benjamin R. Barber. And surprise, surprise, Barber is a member of the Council on Foreign Relations. See how these names always keep on cropping up. Barber is also a senior research scholar at the Centre of Philanthropy and Civil Society in the Graduate Centre, CUNY. He is the president and founder of the Interdependence Movement, and his recent work has connected him with mayors, political advisors and intercity associations around the world, propelling the development of a global parliament of mayors from theory into practice. He is a senior fellow of Demos and president of its Civ World Initiative. Barber is the founder of the Global Parliament of Mayors movement. The executive director of that movement is Eileen Herring Woods. Originally from New York City, she says she has made London her home for over 30 years. She says she has a track record of long-term client relationships and public-private sector partnerships and has been commissioned by local authorities, property developers, Arts Council England, international brands, media groups and the United Nations environmental programs. As a consultant to Westminster City Council for over 10 years, she provided creative and strategic expertise to a wide range of environment and planning initiatives. When describing the Global Parliament of Mayors in her LinkedIn profile, she writes, "This network of networks could incorporate and align the intercity associations currently operating in silos defined by particular domains, in other words, environmentalism, trade, security." But why the word silo? Don't we get missile silo, don't we, or grain silo? So why is she calling it silos? Yeah, doesn't that smack of secrecy? Yeah, behind closed doors, so to speak. Those who have read Leadership Training for a Common Purpose will already be aware that silo busting is a global initiative promoted by the United Nations Development Group and its UK shill, Julia Middleton, CEO of Common Purpose. So what does the Global Parliament of Mayors say about its future global role? A series of question and answers on its website provides a clue. Question: in a world of nation states and supranational entities like the EU, will cities have the resources and jurisdictional authority to undertake the difficult work of global governance? Answer: one of the most important aims of a GPM to develop is a right of the city platform to secure the resources and jurisdictional autonomy necessary to discharging local and global responsibilities. Question: can a GPM really be a world government with a command and control architecture? Answer: no, it cannot and should not aspire to be that. It should be a bottom-up, soft governance institution that works through influencing other levels of governments and civic and private sector with sound policies and effective solutions. Global public opinion must also be its target. As the author says, this suggests to me that there will be further nudging towards our acceptance of elected mayors. A flavour of this so-called parliament can be found within their published document, a declaration of the rights of the city and citizens. The preamble of the declaration sets out what its proponents claim to be the root of the rights of the city. It states that the key right of the city, the first listed below, is the right of the city to self-governance, a right that has been historically recognised in documents as old as Magna Carta, whose 800th anniversary is being celebrated this year. In the US Bill of Rights, the 9th Amendment citing the people as the ultimate repository of rights, and the 10th reserving those powers not explicitly delegated to the federal government, to the states and the people locally. And in the European Charter and its doctrine of subsidiary that empowers cities with key rights to governance not dependent on the central government. They claim that Cities have a right to self-governance, especially in our 21st century era of interdependence, where independent states are failing to solve global problems that threaten not only sustainability and justice, but existence itself. If the alarm bells inside your head are not already deafening, they soon will be. There are only 12 articles of the Declaration that speaks of the rights of the cities and citizens. In the interest of brevity, I should comment on only 2 of them. Article number 4. The right to clean air and water, and to a greenhouse environment with minimal, eventually zero, carbon emissions, which translates into the right to take action to assure a safe and sustainable environment regardless of the action or inaction of other levels of government. So in other words, the future citizen can expect to travel on foot or by public transport only, and will be subject to strict control of all his daily activities in the interest of minimising his so-called carbon footprint. The rollout of smart utility meters between now and 2020 would appear to be part of this carbon reduction initiative. If that prospect isn't bad enough, Article 5 introduces the right of residential dignity. Before lobbying for such a future right, just think about how these globalists define it. The right to residential dignity is the right to identity papers, in other words visas, identity cards. The framers of this declaration appear to have deliberately omitted one of the fundamental pillars of the British common law system. The default position has long been settled and means that the state may do nothing but that which is expressly authorised by law, while the individual may do anything but that which is forbidden by law, as per the Entick versus Carrington case of 1765. The requirements of individuals to carry identity cards is one of the key characteristics of totalitarian states, and is an imposition that is wholly unacceptable to me, and I agree with him. What sanction could be imposed against those like me who choose not to comply? The city visa or urban ID allows access to schools, hospitals, transportation and jobs on the condition of law-abiding behaviour for all residents, regardless of their regional or national immigration status or the manner in which they entered the country in which their city finds itself. So, in the future that is being planned, the only way that you will be able to gain access to services and jobs will be to carry a permit or ID card. And, thinking of what the Bible states, and that no man might buy or sell, save that he had the mark. And I can see where it's coming from here. They're going to introduce the cards first, not too invasive. Yeah, well, a bit of a nuisance, isn't it? Have to carry a card around, have to keep on proving who you are. Where are your papers? Pappen Severa. Yeah, or something like that. In other words, I'm trying to give you the World War II scenario, that when you was under occupied Germany, you had to carry identity wherever you went, because any time the Gestapo or German soldiers could stop you and ask for your papers, and if you didn't have your papers, you were immediately arrested, taken away and interrogated, tortured, no doubt, because in their mind, if you didn't have the papers, then obviously you didn't have a right to be there, so you must be a spy. Yeah. Now, isn't it interesting? I remember trying to explain to a brother a few weeks ago when he was talking about Ken Livingstone. And look what we have him saying. Devolve power to your cities if you want to save the planet. Really? Join the global parliament of mayors. Yeah. Thanks, Ken. Red Ken. You haven't changed. But you see, this is how socialists operate, don't they? This is for your benefit. We have to take away your rights. We have to take away your freedom because it's for your benefit. It's for your protection. It's for your safety. Yeah? Don't you feel safer now that you're being watched 24/7? Don't you feel safer now that your emails are being read? And I hope that you people, well, I very much doubt whether many of you actually signed a petition against the Investigative Powers Bill, which has been passed, by the way. But see, it's not. I don't think it's a scriptural thing, but I do believe the thing was. It says, what was it? Evil persists where good do nothing. Yeah, So you get what you ask for. Yeah, if you're not prepared to stand up and say no, then you get what you don't want. So advisors and supporters of the Global Parliament Mayors include Professor Richard Sennett, who is a Centennial Professor of Sociology at the London School of Economics. Oh, surprise, the Fabians then. Jeff Sachs, a Special Advisor to United Nations Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, Director of the Earth Institute at Columbia University. Ken Livingstone, former Mayor of London. Bruce Katz of the Brookings Institute. Oh yes, it's another, shall we say, society, or what's best we call it, implement of global tyranny that you should look into. Ewan Harkness, director of Barclays Capital. Oh yeah, those used to finance apartheid. And Tom Cochrane, who's the CEO and executive director of the US Conference of Mayors. Oh, and sorry, they're the advisors. The supporters are the C40 Cities Climate Leadership Group, founded by Ken Livingstone. Oh, surprise, surprise, he has been busy. ICLEI, which is the Local Government for Sustainability, International Organisations for Migration, the Hague Process on Refugees and Migration, United Cities and Local Governments, United States Conference of Mayors, CityNet, and the World Cities of Culture Forum. According to Benjamin Barber, speaking at the 14th D.T. Lakdwala lecture organised by the Institute of Social Sciences in New Delhi in December of last year, democratic institutions all over the world are in trouble as an increasing number of people no longer believe in them. In this scenario, cities need to be brought to the centre of the political order. He added that mayors all over the world have a common purpose. Oh yeah, surprise, surprise. They love to use that word now, don't they? They like to keep it in there in their language, because obviously they're laughingly saying, I'm Common's Purpose Trade, and I'm letting you know it, you don't even realise it. Yeah, because that's the smugness of these people. Like they like the thought that they know something you don't. Yeah, and then they can flaunt it in your face without you even realising. Because it's interesting. I think it was about a couple of years ago now. But I remember just talking to this guy, and I just wanted to see what the response was, because at that time I think not many people knew about Common Purpose and what it was up to. And this gentleman was talking along, and I said, "So what do you know about Common Purpose then?" And I couldn't believe the response. He just said, "This conversation's ended," and he quickly walked away. And I thought, "What?" What the word Common Purpose is that either offensive or a term that can cause fear? But of course, as is rightly describing it, that's what it is. It's a government within the government. It is the fifth column. So, stating back, he says, mayors all over the world have a common purpose when it comes to tackling law and order, terrorism and climate change. And here's what George Ferguson, Mayor of Bristol and the Global Parliament of Mayors, says in Cities Today. Cities Today is a global magazine containing analysis, comment and best practices on sustainable urban development, connecting local governments with public and private sector solutions. Its editorial advisory board comprises the World Bank, oh surprise surprise, the United Nations Environment Programme, UN Habitat, whatever that is, and city associations ICLEI, C40 and Eurocities. In their article, First Parliament of Mayors to Convene in October, published on the 2nd of March of last year, George Ferguson, the Mayor of Bristol, a city which is already active in Eurocities, is quoted as saying that there are other organisations pushing in the same direction in the lead up to the Paris COP, ICLEI, Eurocities, Energy Cities, and we are all coordinating to make quite sure as city organisations that we are endorsing statements rather than the competing on statements. The Cities Today article also revealed that Ferguson is organising a special train from London to Bristol to bring mayors from one Parliament session to the next. The Mayor of Bristol's next stop for the Global Parliament of Mayors is to attend the Nobel Laureates Climate Symposium in April in Hong Kong, where a draft climate manifesto will be developed for discussion and deliberation at the inaugural Parliament in October. Ferguson was the moderator at a Global Parliament of Mayors planning session on the 19th of September in 2014, where he sat at the top table alongside Benjamin R. Barber. The inaugural Global Parliament of Mayors will convene on the 10th of September of this year in The Hague. It will establish its so-called governance legitimacy and address an agenda of cross-border issues selected by the mayors. According to Josias Johannes van Aartsen, Mayor of The Hague, the GPM will deploy collective urban political power, manifesting the right of cities to govern themselves, as well as responsibility to enact viable cross-border solutions to global challenges. In this era of interdependence, where nation states are increasingly dysfunctional and cities are everywhere rising, the moment has come for cities to take the leap from effective local governments to true global governments. The Compact of Mayors was launched by UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon and his Special Envoy for Cities and Climate Change, Michael R. Bloomberg, under the leadership of the World's Global City Network's C40 Cities Climate Leadership Group, Local Governments for Sustainability, that's the ICLEI, and the United Cities and Local Governments, UCLG, with support from UN Habitat, the UN's lead agency on urban issues. The Compact establishes a common platform to capture the impact of cities' collective actions through standardised measurements of emissions and climate risk and consistent public reporting of their efforts. The action statement of the Resilient Cities Acceleration Initiative lists supporters as committed countries and partners. The Rockefeller Foundation, surprise, surprise, thought he would be popping his head up somewhere. 100 resilient cities pioneered by the Rockefeller Foundation. The foundation of resilience in cities lies in the strengthened ability of urban systems and populations to change, adapt, absorb and learn from various events and stresses that had adverse consequences to inhabitants, city structure and environment. Rising to the challenge, cities and local governments around the world have made political commitments at home and abroad through global campaigns such as those launched by ICLEI, United Cities for Local Government, and C40 Cities Climate Leadership Group, and Making Cities Resilient campaign, led by UNISDR, most recently through the new Compact of Mayors. The Daily Telegraph article Voters Don't Want Them, but the March of the Mayors is now unstoppable, concluded by stating that England has been denied a debate and the result of its referendums have been ignored. The March of the Mayors is now unstoppable. England's only option is to hope that they work. The author of that article was Fraser Nelson, who is also editor of The Spectator. The Spectator had previously published an article, Governments Have Failed, Mayors Are the Future, in which they held George Ferguson up as a shining example of a mayor heralding a brighter future by revealing that he has banished cyclists, unfriendly bendy buses, revoked Sunday parking charges, signed off on several new primary schools and implemented a 20-mile-per-hour zone in residential areas. Ferguson has flown around the world to promote Bristol, campaigning for the city to be given the title of European Green Capital of last year. What this analysis reveals is that in the near future an unwilling British electorate are to have mayors introduced in every city and so-called region of the nation. The evidence suggests that if they are not directly elected, they will be imposed by a process of selection and appointment. The colour of the candidate's political allegiance will not matter. They will be bound by the Global Covenant of Mayors and other international agreements. We have witnessed this conjuring trick before when referenda was held for elected regional assemblies. When those votes went the wrong way and it became clear that unelected regional assemblies already existed, the drive towards elected UK mayors represents the rising tide of the benign-sounding global governance model. This is a UN-imposed dictatorship masquerading as part of our national democracy. As we have consistently pointed out, co-conspirators include those trained by pseudo-education political charity Common Purpose. The future role of mayors will be to protect the global interests dictated by the United Nations Agenda 2030 and the UN Agenda 21 on steroids. In the absence of public consent, our Westminster Parliament has already surrendered the majority of its law-making powers to the undemocratic institutions of the European Union, delegating its residual powers to cities and regions on conditions that they embrace the Osborne-promoted new city-states model, must surely result in the complete destruction of the United Kingdom as a Westphalian nation-state. Or should that be Westphalian? Not quite sure where that comes from, but interesting that. Probably worth looking up. Will the long-delayed $3 billion refurbishment of the House of Parliament begin as planned in 2020? If so, will this signify the abolition of our national parliament? Food for thought indeed, don't you think, brothers and sisters? And you, UK citizens, who should be waking up and should be learning about these things and saying, no, not in my lifetime. So, we then go on to part 2 of this expose, which is called the Resilient Cities Programme. I've retitled it the By Stealth Global Tyranny. But as the question is asked, another threat to individual liberties? Same author, Martin Edwards. published on the 5th of last month this year. In the new political and economic system of the 21st century, an ever-increasing number of non-governmental organisations, often working collaboratively in networks, who now claim to better represent individuals, or, as we are now called, civil society. This range of largely unknown groups exerting influence on the world stage include the G20, the G7, the Bilderberg Group, the Council on Foreign Relations, the Trilateral Commission of the USA, the Ditchley Foundation, the Royal Institutes of International Affairs, based at Chatham House, the Club of Madrid, and the Club of Rome, which was founded in 1968 at David Rockefeller's estate in Bellagio, Italy. The Club of Rome itself described itself as a group of world citizens sharing a common concern for the future of humanity. Oh, isn't that nice of them? It includes within its existing and past membership familiar names such as Bill Clinton, former President of the United States, founder of the Clinton Global Initiative; Al Gore, former Vice President of the United States and leading climate change campaigner; Maurice Strong, former head of the UN Environment Programs, Secretary General of the Rio Earth Summit, and co-author with Gorbachev of the Earth Charter; Kofi Annan, former Secretary General of the United Nations; Gro Harlem Brundtland, United Nations Special Envoy for Climate Change, Director General of the World Health Organization from 1998 to 2003, member of the Club of Madrid and member of the Bilderberg Group; Robert Mueller, former Assistant Secretary General of the United Nations and creator of the World Core Curriculum, and we all know what's going on with that. Let's teach children about how homosexuality is a norm, and let's dumb them down as much as we possibly can. Let's give them our version of history instead of the truth. Robert Mueller, former Assistant Secretary. George Soros. Oh, here we go. Multi-billionaire and major donor to the UN. Bill Gates, founder of Microsoft, so-called philanthropist and member of the Bilderberg Group. And he's missed out the fact he's a eugenicist as well. If you have seen his TED talk about how he's going to reduce the population, because obviously that number has to be brought down to zero in order for us to, win this battle against climate change. All that carbon dioxide we're breathing out, Hey, never mind that trees love it and give us oxygen in return, eh? And finally, of course, David Rockefeller. Club of Rome executive member, former chairman of Chase Manhattan Bank, founder of the Trilateral Commission, executive member of the World Economic Forum, honorary chairman of the Council on Foreign Relations, and member of the Bilderberg Group. Yeah, it's always the usual suspects, isn't it? A flavour of the intentions of this Marxist-dominated globalist cabal emerged in a 1974 Club of Rome report called Mankind at the Turning Point. Now is the time to draw up a master plan for sustainable growth and world development based on global allocation of all resources and a new global economic system. 10 or 20 years from today, it will probably be too late. 20 years later, they had already formulated their plan for the undermining of national governments and the sovereignty of the nations. They identified that global challenges such as international crime, terrorism and climate change provide the key to global societal change. In searching for the new enemy to unite us, we came up with the idea that pollution, the threat of global warming, water shortages, famine and the like would fit the bill. In their totality and in their interactions, these phenomena do constitute a common threat which demands the solidarity of all people. But in designating them as the enemy, we fall into a trap about which we have already warned, by human intervention, and it is only through changing attitudes and behaviours that they can be overcome. The real enemy then is humanity itself. And it puts a link. It says, look at the first global revolution in 1993, report by the Council of the Club of Rome. In August of 2009, at the Incheon Conference, which was called Building an Alliance of Local Government for Disaster Risk Reduction, Ban Ki-moon, UN Secretary General, said, I call for the need of world leaders to address climate change and reduce the increasing risk of disasters, and world leaders must include mayors, townships and community leaders. This might go some way to explaining why city and regional mayors are now to be imposed upon an unwilling British electorate. The UN ISDR has developed the following so-called definitions on disaster risk reduction. Disaster risk reduction is the concept and practice of reducing disaster risks through the systematic efforts to analyse and manage the causal factors of disasters, including through reduced exposure to hazards, lessened vulnerability of people and property, wise management of land and the environment, and improved preparedness for adverse effects. Hazard is defined as a dangerous phenomenon, substance, human activity or condition that may cause loss of life, injury or other health impacts, property damage, loss of livelihoods and services, social and economic disruption or environmental damage. Resilience is defined as the ability of a system, community or society exposed to hazards to resist, absorb, accommodate to and recover from the effects of a hazard in a timely and effectual manner, including through the preservation and restoration of its essential basic structures and functions. The UN Office for Disaster Risk Reduction, or DRR, also specifies that disaster risk reduction is part of the sustainable development. In order for development activities to be sustainable, they must also reduce disaster risk. DRR aims to reduce the damage caused by natural hazards like earthquakes, floods, droughts and cyclones through an ethic of prevention. Sounds very much like to us that this is ethic of prevention could be used as the blueprint for complete top-down control over all human activity. Yeah. It also makes me laugh how they think they can actually prevent earthquakes. How can you prevent what the earth decides to do? You know, it's ludicrous that they can actually sit there and spout this stuff. You know, maybe if they stop the fracking and so on, maybe if they didn't use all their technology like HAARP and so on, like, you know, maybe we wouldn't have half the global disasters. But you know what number one problem is? Yeah, let's turn back to the Creator. Yeah. Let's give him thanks and praise. Let's humble ourselves. You know, he makes a lovely promise in his word. He says, if my people, who are called by my name, humble themselves before me, confess their sins towards me, and seek my forgiveness, I will forgive them, heal their land, and heal them. But hey, no, don't want to believe in your visible man in the sky. You know, because I trust science and I trust technology, because I can see that with my eyes, so therefore that must be real. So then we have the Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction of 2015 to 2030. Apparently is the first major agreement of the post-2015 development agenda with 7 targets and 4 priorities for action. According to the Sendai Framework, the state has the primary role to reduce disaster risk, but that responsibility should be shared with other stakeholders, including local government, the private sector and other stakeholders. This is yet another vehicle for the propulsion of the United Nations model of governance, the public-private partnership, in which of the 3 pillars of this model, local government, private sector and other stakeholders, does ultimate public accountability lie when things go wrong? In many of the private sector partnerships examined during this series of articles, we have discovered that many of the key personnel had received training by a political charity, Common Purpose. We named this phenomena the Common Purpose Effect. Could the title of the following official document be explained as simple coincidence? Acting with Common Purpose, Proceedings of the first session of the Global Platform for Disaster Risk Reduction in Geneva, 5th to the 7th of June 2007. We also understand the UN Office for Disaster Risk Reduction will support the implementation, follow-up and review of the Sendai Framework. It will provide so-called practical guidance for implementation in close collaboration with states through mobilization of experts. We therefore ask, who will these so-called experts be and how will they be selected? The 100 Cities Resilience Project. Pioneered and financially supported by the Rockefeller Foundation, the 100 Resilient Cities Project is dedicated to helping cities around the world become more resilient to the physical, social and economic challenges that are growing part of the 21st century. See, and I have to stop right there and think, well, hang a minute, what are all these challenges? You know, where are they coming from? Yeah, because surely, you know, whatever challenge comes is because someone else raises the challenge, yeah, or issues the challenge. You know, in other words, if people just get on with their lives and are not busybodies and don't upset others, then there's not going to be any challenges, are there? But of course, we know that these are the people that are creating the challenges. Yeah, wake up, people, please. The project claims that crisis is the new normal for cities of the 21st century. Oh, I see. Fear, 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 terror, terror, terror. Because of the collision of globalization, urbanization, and climate change, not a week goes by that there not a disruption to a city somewhere in the world, a cyber attack, a natural disaster, or economic or social upheaval. Don't recall that happening in my town lately. In fact, things seem to tick along quite reasonably well, actually. Of course, we have a council that brags about how great they are and how they've got the they've had the green flag for what's it called, recycling, etc. for the last I think it's 4 or 5 years. But yeah, don't recall any cyber attacks, don't recall any natural disasters, don't recall any economic or social upheaval. Haven't seen any bank runs, haven't seen any bank collapses. Barclays still in existence, Lloyd's still in existence. HSBC's gone, but of course we knew that, you have to have a few fall guys, don't you? 100 Resilient Cities program partners from the private, public, academic and non-profit sectors include Amex Foster Wheeler, who assists cities protect their assets in preparation from climate change. Arup, whose director, Robert Kerr, was until recently chair of the Common Purpose Charitable Trust. Surprise, surprise. Cities Alliance, which works to promote social inclusion in urban planning and development. CISRO, CS, not CIS, which gives cities access to building simulation tools to assess the energy efficiency of building design options for low carbon development at the city scale. Deutsche Bank, to assist and implement solutions that provide property assessed clean energy financing to property owners. Earth Economics, to help cities develop their natural capital strategic initiative. It's real hard working to this. See how the way they use these words, it's really designed to, you can imagine the average man in the street go, do I really want to read all this? I can't be bothered. Put the telly on, I think EastEnders is on. So that's why they do it, But I'm prepared to wade through it because I'm not going to, accept the opium of the masses. R20 regions of climate action, financial modelling associated with street light upgrades and waste and recycling management systems. Oh yeah, well, don't do a very good job round this way then, because quite locally there's an area of road which has had a section of street lights out now for, goodness gracious, I think at least 18 months. Whenever I'm coming out in a cab or whatever, I always say to the cab driver, I says, there you go. I said, what am I paying council tax for when they can't even keep the street lights on? And I can't believe that they haven't had reports, because I don't believe everyone that's gone down that road has totally ignored it. I admit I haven't reported it myself because it's not in my borough, and therefore, I don't really have a leg to stand on, because if it was in my borough, then I'd be quite within my rights to complain to the local office. But and actually, I'm starting to think that now. And I mean, the more vocal we are, the less other people, they oh, it's caused a fuss, troublemaker, malcontent. No, I mean, it's a simple thing, isn't it? If you pay for a service, then you expect to get the service. What else have we got? The Nature Conservancy, Veolia, whatever that is, and, oh look, Microsoft City Next, developing a cyber resilience roadmap for cities. Of course, have to be old Bill Gates in there, isn't it? I'm just going to try and bring up something else that hopefully will show that. Don't know whereabouts that's going to be. Excuse me a minute. I just want to see if I can. I don't know where the picture's going to be. I'm going to try and scroll through, so bear with me for a second. The annoying thing is I might end up having to scroll past videos. Anyway, let's see. Yeah. Yeah. I'm trying to get up I've got a picture of Robert Kerr and a thing he says, but the way the document came down, I say it cut off some of his statement, so I'm hoping that I think this is, excuse me, I think this is silly trying to how can I say, find it this way, because I've got so many, a lot of this is video I'm trying to break through.
This is the first.
No, I think I'll stop this because
Let's go to the final.
see if it actually comes up under Robert Kerr. Hopefully. Yeah, great. Yeah, so this is what Robert Kerr, director of Arup, says. There is no doubt that a people who constitute common purpose, the Illumini, can fulfill the purpose of providing leadership in our communities, whether modest or at the highest level. When we do, the world will become a better place. Isn't that reassuring? Isn't that nice? How these people have our best interests at heart, eh? Because you know they're the experts. They know best, yeah. Whereas the way I see it, I mean, the average man can handle his life quite well enough without all this interference, all this nannying, as we call it. And so he comes to the point. He says, so two areas of public concern spring immediately to mind. First, the belief that the government is spying on us through our computers, phones, cars, buses, streetlights, at airports and on the street, via mobile scanners and drones, through smart meters and via smart TVs. Secondly, that Microsoft, the computer software giant, who in 2014 disclosed a potentially catastrophic vulnerability in virtually all versions of Windows, should be trusted with developing citywide cyber resilience. I agree. He says UKCOM researchers have also noted that a further program partner of the 100 Resilient Cities project is the International Rescue Committee, and that's not that's not the Tracy family, by the way. That's not Thunderbirds. The IRC works with member cities to supposedly help them humanely accommodate or otherwise integrate influxes of displaced populations into the city's social, economic and cultural fabric in a manner that enhances overall resilience of the host city. Yeah, no, was it? They throw a load of immigrants into a town and then say, get on with it, or else. as the author states in a previous article, revealed that the International Rescue Committee is governed by a volunteer, unpaid board of directors. Of the 28 members board, 11 are also members of the Council on Foreign Relations. Oh, surprise, surprise. David Rockefeller is honorary chairman on the Council of Foreign Relations. Open Society, of which George Soros is founder and chairman, is an especially valuable partner to the IRC. Then we have London First, and Cyber Resilience and Common Purpose. London First is a business membership organisation with the mission to make London the best city in the world to do business. It is constituted as a not-for-profit organisation entirely funded by its members. London First claims their agenda is developed independent of party political motives or affiliations. In October 2015, London First teamed up with Common Purpose to launch a cyber resilience challenge on the Common Purpose massive online innovation community, where participants were encouraged to submit ideas that will influence the way we, and we wonder who the we is, prevent, react, recover and adapt to cyber dangers in collaboration with stakeholders. The Common Purpose massive online innovation community says it brings together over 45,000 Common Purpose alumni from around the world in an online community to consult and collaborate with fellow leaders. Readers can consult the October 2015 conference list of delegates, and it gives a link if you wish to check it out. So check out UK Column's website. Among the delegates, UK Column researchers discovered was the head of Global Client Relations, Common Purpose, the Chief Executive of Student Experience, Common Purpose Global, the Deputy Assistant Secretary General for Emerging Secretary Challenges, NATO, the head of the Office of Director, Europol, 4 representatives from Deutsche Bank AG, 8 from KPMG, Mike Gapes, MP for Ilford South, who is Vice Chair of the British Group of the Interparliamentary Union, and Lord Hannay of Chiswick, GCMG, Chair of the United Nations All-Party Parliamentary Group. Cristiana Fragola attended on behalf of 100 Resilient Cities. She is their Regional Director of Europe and Middle East. Previously, she was European Regional Director for the C40 Cities Climate Leadership Group. Ms. Fragola also served as legal counsel to executive leadership at the United Nations and set forth transparent reporting procedures for MDGs funding mechanisms. We also noted the presence of Eileen Herring-Woods, who is Executive Director of the Global Parliament of Mayors Project, who we met in the previous article. Sir David Venice is Chairman of London First, the Security and Resilience Network Advisory Board. He served as Under Secretary General of the United Nations Department of Safety and Security from its creation in 2005 until June 2009. Also on the board is Common Purpose graduate Cressida Dick, the commander who was in charge of the operation that led to the death of Jean-Charles de Menezes. You remember the Brazilian electrician who was murdered, brutally gunned down? London was among the second group of cities selected to join the 100 Resilient Cities, according to Catherine Cameron, writing on the Common Purpose blog, How Smart Cities Can Combat Climate Change. City mayors can be more nimble than state or national level politicians and need to act fast to stay in office so they get results. There are a number of global collaborations at city level, including the new Rockefeller 100 Resilient Cities and the decade-long C40 initiative. The 70 mega cities of the C40 initiative represent 500 million citizens, 1/4 of the global GDP, and have taken over 8,000 climate actions, with a commitment to reduce 1 gigaton of CO2 by 2020. Catherine Cameron has been involved with the CSC Leaders Programme. CSC leaders provide leadership training for the future leaders of the Commonwealth and is a partnership between international leadership development organisations, Common Purpose, and His Royal Highness the Duke of Edinburgh's Commonwealth Study Conference, or UK Fund. Catherine Cameron's online biography indicates that she is a sustainability practitioner with a particular focus on responding to climate disruption, having been a member of the core team that produced the Stern Review of the Economics of Climate Change in 2006. Of course, he says readers may recall that the 700-page Stern Review report on the economics of climate change provided prescriptions for environmental taxes, Stern, a former chief economic advisor to the UK government, was also the chief economist and senior vice president of the World Bank from 2000 to 2003. Stern is associated with leadership training organisation Common Purpose. Oh, surprise, surprise. Common Purpose, isn't it, wherever you look. And in an article in the Telegraph, he suggested that people should give up eating meat to halt climate change. That would do it. According to former Mayor of London, Boris Johnson, London is the world's commerce and technology hub and winning membership of this global network. The 100 Resilient Cities programme will enable us to bolster the city's plans to stay one step ahead of today's threats, including from cybercrime. We already have tried and tested emergency response plans for London's physical infrastructure, but we can and must do more on prevention, and this Rockefeller-developed initiative will deliver significant financial support and access to world-leading expertise. It is perhaps no surprise then to learn that Boris Johnson spoke about smart cities at the CSC Leaders on 2015. He previously appeared on a page on the Common Purpose website where he endorsed their Daojiang project, which brought together young leaders from Shanghai and London. Now let's have a look at our new mayor, Sadiq Khan. London electors may have been hoping for a change in strategic policy following the election of a new mayor. We believe that they will be sadly disappointed in the outcome. Within his manifesto for all Londoners, Khan promised to be the greatest mayor ever, seeking to establish London as a leader in low-carbon innovation industry, cleaning up our dangerously polluted air, and setting out an ambitious long-term plan for clean energy in our capital. He promised London will be run on clean energy by 2050 and that he would hold a major review of the capital's safeguards and resilience on day one. It becomes increasingly clear that we have already entered the post-democratic era. There's another picture I want to bring up. This is what Benjamin Barber had to say. Hopefully that will be easy to find. Probably find it under Benjamin Barber. Let's have a look. So you put for... Yeah, here we go. This is what he has to say. Benjamin Barber, who's the founder of Parliament of Mayors movement. Democratic institutions all over the world are in trouble as an increasing number of people no longer believe in them. In this scenario, cities need to be brought to the centre of the political order. Mayors all over the world have a common purpose when it comes to tackling law and order, terrorism and climate change. Yeah. Excuse me if that's been repeatedly said, but I need to get this. This is how these people think, yeah, and this is what we need to understand so that we can combat it. Because if we just blithely let them carry on, to them, that speaks of acquiescence, that we're quite happy for them to go ahead with these things. So there you have it. Yeah. Goodbye democracy. Welcome to the global mayorship. Or should I say mayorality? Well, it's clocking at 1 hour 23. I don't know. I don't really have any much more to say. Also wish that our Heavenly Father higher, if it please to do so, will bless the following people, namely Shane Martin and Julian Charles and Dr. Patrick Cecil Roberts. But I think all you people should know that behind all this is Satan, and he is going to have his day, and that really all we can do is just trust and, well, not deny our Lord and Saviour Yeshua, and just take each day as it comes. But we need to spread the truth to people so that people can be fully informed, because it says they will turn on us when they say, you never warned me, you never told me, you never let me know. And if you've told them and they don't know, yeah, that's their choice. At least they've been told. So with that, I wish you all the best and say bye for now. And please, let's get some views to the other two videos that I posted, such as the Illuminati trilogy, which sadly has had no views whatsoever. I would have thought with a title like Exclusive, and Illuminati that people would have flocked to it. But then again, maybe it's Google's their algorithms that are making sure that I get very, very few views. It's to be accepted in Satan's system. I think there's so much truth in that phrase. What is it? The devil is in the details. He sure is. Bye for now.